Hey everyone, welcome back. I am the Electrical Code Coach from electricalexamcoach.com, and this is lesson 1.0 in our video series. This is the 2017, 2020, and 2023 compatible National Electrical Code Exam Prep Series. It's good for all NEC exams, including your journeyman and masters, your ICC exams, engineering exams, and all inspector certifications. If you look down in the bottom left-hand corner of each video, it's going to let you know what year your video is compatible with. Most of them are compatible for all three. If you see a line through your year, that means that specific video is not, but we've made it very easy to navigate on the website so you'll be able to stay right on track. Most importantly, I want you to know that I just want to see you guys win. And whatever it takes for me in life or business to see you do that, I'll do it. You have access to me at all times, absolutely for free. You can text me at 423-895-3247 or email me at electricalcodecoach@gmail.com. When I set out to make my program, I did not want a 45-minute video with only about 3 minutes of information. If there's a 45-minute video, there's 45 minutes of information. Now, this first video is a little more introductory, but for the rest of the program, it's system after system, process after process. Let's get to it. This program will cover the keyword and index process. That's the process that I've coined. There's two different types of questions on these exams. There are what we call lookup questions that literally you're going to use the keyword and index process to find. And then there are calculations. There really are only two classifications. Now, when you take these exams, you could get a bunch of lookup questions or you could get a bunch of calculations. I want you to be prepared for both. You're going to learn how to tab your code book. After this video, I'm going to lead you to my tabbing video. I have one for the 17 and the 2020. Pick your respective one. If you've not purchased your tabs, you can get those at electricalcodecoach.com. I'll put some links down in the description below. It's going to cover load calculations, box fill calculations, pipe fill calculations, voltage drop, motor calculations, classifications of locations, transformers, size and grounding bonding conductors, and much more. We're going to cover many different aspects of these topics. And I want to say this before we go any further. There is no such thing as journeyman exam prep or master exam prep. It's all one exam prep. You cannot skip to the front of the line. You have to go through this one step at a time. You know, I teach this class in person, and I'll have people who have been in the industry 2 years, and I'll have people who have been in the industry 30 years. Because it doesn't matter who you are or what level you're at. You have to study this core set of content before you can ever get your license. If you have experience in the electrical field, this course is designed to equip you with the knowledge needed to pass your examination, instill in you the pride of being a fully equipped electrician, open doors for you in the electrical community and in the industry, and also take you to the next level. While I've got you here, I want to accomplish as much in you as physically possible. If you're here, I want to see you go there. If you're there, I want to see you go to the next level. My bargain is that these videos will add value to you, and you will in turn add value to others. Let's get to it. If you do not have experience in the field, this course is designed to introduce you into the electrical code book and the electrical community, create a spark in you for the electrical industry, help you be far above the average starting apprentice in knowledge and understanding, and help you get job placement with one of our committed sponsors. Now, that is something that we offer for our people who take the class in person. We have local people that will interview them if we recommend them. But if there's any way that I can help you to get a job or job placement somewhere, just shoot me an email at electricalcodecoach@gmail.com. There's some tactics that you can use in order to get yourself job placement. This is an excellent career opportunity, and also this is an excellent time to get into the industry. Whether you do or do not have experience in the electrical field, this course is not designed to guarantee that you pass the test. I do not know that you're going to put in the work that it takes to get your electrical license or your certification. I actually can tell you, believe it or not, the exact day that you're going to get your license. I know who you are, and I know the exact day you're going to get it. The day you deserve it. The day you deserve your license is the day that you're going to get it. So if you put in the work, and listen, we want the buy-in to the table at the electrical. We want it to be high. We don't want the buy-in to be cheap because then the value will be cheap. We want the buy-in to be an electrician very high. So if you do sit at the table, you've paid the cost, and that allows us to keep the industry at the level that it's at. This is not designed to turn you into an electrician overnight. I'm not in that business. I'll never be in that business of helping people get them licensed and pumping them out with no experience. This is not to cover every single question that you could ever face on the test. They have data, huge data banks that they pull their questions from. That's not designed to cover this, but I do want to cover as many core topics and strategies that I can cover to help you be as prepared as possible. And also, this is not designed to help you grow your hair back. Sorry, fellas. I'm going to use this one exam as an example. Your exam in your state will look very similar. Could be more questions, could be more time, could be a little bit different topics, but this is very typical, and there's a reason why I'm showing you this. So this one here is a 40-question exam. You need 29 items to pass, and you have an hour and 30 minutes to do it. It tests on these different topics, which we're going to cover these, and also the tactics to how to find the answer in any subject. The main thing that I want to point out here is how long do you get per question for this exam? Well, this exam, you have 3 minutes and 15 seconds to answer each question. Some questions are naturally 5 minutes long, so we have to be very quick at deciding where we're going to invest time in the code book and where we're not going to. And that's going to be the first concept that we're getting ready to learn, is how to use the keyword and index process. Some of the things I teach you are a physical process, like how to do a calculation. Other ones are strategic processes in order to save you time and also ultimately be able to help you find the answer. So let's go ahead and jump right into our first process. Before we do that, I want to note that this one happens to be 3 minutes and 15 seconds, but there is a higher level exam in my state that you only get about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And some of those questions are naturally 10 minutes long. So you better believe you better be fast at looking up the questions that are lookup questions so you have more time to invest in your calculations. Let's learn about our very first process. And this is the keyword and index process. It's the most important process of this entire program. I cannot stress to you how important it is to you being able to pass the test. You're not going to be able to memorize every calculation or every rule, and you're definitely not going to be able to memorize every part of the code book. So this is the way that you can use to find anything in the code book using the keyword and index process. Whether you've forgotten a process that we learned in a calculation, or you're needing to just look up a specific code reference. So we are going to go ahead and learn this process now. It's something that you're going to master as you go along, and without mastering it, you'll never be able to pass any of these examinations. So let's go ahead and take this example question as step one. What is the minimum depth of working space required in front of electrical equipment that has exposed live parts on one side and no live or grounded parts on the other side where the voltages are 150 volts to ground or less? Now, there's a lot going on with this question, and this is a very typical style structure of how they'll write them. Very large, and it seems like it's really complicated. And if you're like me, at times you'll struggle with reading comprehension, but the method that I'm getting ready to teach you will show you the way of how to break this down one piece at a time. Our first pro tip is that you want to read your questions and answers at least twice, because in using this process, we're wanting to use the keywords of this question to find the answer. So we want to make sure we read the question twice to make sure we understand what it's trying to say. We definitely want to read the answers twice because we're going to use those answers to help us decide whether or not we're going to invest the time in reading the paragraph. And you'll understand what that means a little bit more here in just a moment. So step one to the keyword and index process is, let's imagine that me and you are on the phone and you were calling me and asking me this code question. What are we talking about? What are you doing? What are you wiring? What is the scenario? And in this case, you're working in front of a piece of equipment, you're calling me, and you're asking me about the depth of working space. That's how I'm going to decide where to go look in the index. Now, the index is in the back of the code book. We're getting ready to go there here in just a moment and start answering this question. I'm having you do this first question without tabs on your book so you can feel the pain and the struggle of not having tabs. Not all states allow tabs, so you want to make sure that you find out with your state before you tab your book up if you're allowed to take tabs in. I know pretty much universally California does not allow them, but that could only be specific areas. So if you find out any different, let me know. I was just using that as an example. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to head to the index. Now, this is the point of the program where you're going to have a fresh copy of the National Electrical Code Book. You need to find out what code book your state is testing on. Could be the 17, could be the 2020, and could be the 2023. This program here deals with the 17 and the 20, although you could use it for previous versions like the 14 and the 08. Just to be honest with you, I could take an 08 code book and go pass a 2020 exam, but that's because I've been doing it for so long. So now let's go ahead and head to W in the index. Now the index is in the very back of the book. You'll know that you're there when you start seeing things in alphabetical order. And what we're going to do when we get to the index is we're going to head to the W's. And in this case, we're talking about working space. So we're going to go see if there is even anything in the index about working space. If there's not, then we'll come back to square one and we'll pick our next keyword. So take a moment, pause the video if you need to, and go see if there's something about working space in the index. So we've chosen our first keyword, working space. So we head to W in the index. When we get to W, we're going to use the black bold headings to navigate the index. We don't want to stop and read the smaller text just yet. We want to use the black bold headings to get us to the right part of the index. So sure enough, we find something about working space. The question is, now what do we do? Well, what we do is we go back to our question and we look at it and we look for the next keyword. And then underneath that heading of workspace, we're going to start looking underneath of it for more keywords in our question. Well, if I'm talking to you on the phone, I'm standing in front of a piece of equipment and I'm asking about working space. So I would start looking for something to do with electrical equipment. And as we scroll down through there, sure enough, we find about electrical equipment. So we went from W to working space to about electrical equipment. Now there are several sections mentioned. The first one, and then it goes on and on. And this is our pro tip number 2. Always keep your hand or a piece of paper in the back of the book. So when you go flipping, if you quickly find out that you're in the wrong section, you want to be able to quickly flip back to the index and try the next section. So I like to always do them in order. That way I can count them out one at a time. I don't have a lot of time to be skipping around with these sections. I want to do them in order and quickly flip and say yes or no. And if I need to flip back, go to the next one and say yes or no. And you'll understand a little bit more about what I mean here in just a moment. All right, so we went from W to working space to about electrical equipment. Now we have our first code section reference. So we're going to flip to 110.26. Now you may have to pause the video to be able to keep up. I'll wait for you. After you get to 110.26, you're starting to feel the pain of not having any tabs. Don't worry, we're getting ready to tab our codebook here in just a few minutes. So the first thing we do anytime we get to a specific section is we read the black bold headings. Everything that we're doing, we are deciding whether or not to invest the time in reading the paragraph. You do not have the time when you are actually testing to read a bunch of paragraphs that don't have anything to do with your question. So we're going to use the black bold headings to see if we are close. You know, are there any of our keywords? Are there any of our key concepts? And this is where one of the next most important pro tips comes in. So we're going to use our 4 answers that we have, A, B, C, and D, as our guide to help us decide whether or not we're going to invest the time in that paragraph. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the black bold headings. So when we get to 110.26, we read the black bold heading. It says spaces about electrical equipment. Great. I feel like we're still down the right trail. So we've gone from working space to electrical equipment, about electrical equipment. I feel good. So I quickly look down through that paragraph and see if I see any of my four answers. I do not. So I go to the next black bold heading. It says working space. Great. I still feel like we're in the right section. I look down in that paragraph. Do I see anything about 3 feet, 4 feet, 3.5? I don't see anything. So I'm going to look at the next black bold heading. And the next black bold heading says depth of working space. So now I even have another one of my keywords that's in the question because it has the word depth. So we've gone from W to working space to about electrical equipment to depth of working space. I feel like we're in the right section. I look down through there, but I don't see anything right away about 3 feet, 4 feet, or 2 feet. Many times you'll see one of your four answers right there, and then you know, hey, I need to slow down and read this paragraph. I don't see one of my direct answers, but I really feel like I'm in the right section. I've got really four of my keywords. I've got my key concept, which is working space. I have electrical equipment, and I also have depth of working space. So I really feel like I'm in the right section. Now is when I slow down and I read the whole paragraph. Don't just stop if you see your answer. Always read the whole paragraph to make sure that it doesn't modify itself. Sometimes in the code, it'll say yes at the first part of the paragraph and no at the second part of the paragraph. So make sure you always read the entire paragraph. So I read the paragraph. It says the depth of the working space, and it goes down through. I'm seeing more of my keywords like live parts and so on, and it refers me to a table, which brings us to one of our next points, is that if you see a table on a nearby page, sometimes you can save yourself the trouble and see if it has anything to do with what you're working with. I'm teaching you many processes, and this is how you're going to look up any question in the NEC. So it sends me to a table. I look just over, depending on what code cycle you're in, and that table's right there. Now, when I get to the table, the first thing I do is read the black bold heading of the table. We read all of our tables from top to bottom and left to right using the black bold headings to navigate the table. So I read the heading. It says working spaces. Great. I feel like I'm in the right table. Then I take a look at the table, and now we have to read this table, and let's learn how to do it. We've already performed step 1. We've looked at the black bold heading to make sure we're in the right table. Now we read all of our tables from top to bottom, left to right, using the black bold headings to navigate the table. On the left-hand side, we have our nominal voltage to ground. Across the top, we have our minimum clear distance. And then we have condition 1, 2, and 3. On the far left-hand side, we have our nominal voltages. And then in the center is going to be our feet. Now we have to learn how to read this table. And this is kind of one of the more complicated tables because there's a lot going on, but this is a great one to start on. On the left-hand side, we have our nominal voltage. I want to say something about it very quickly. Those values are the voltage to ground. So most of your residential systems are going to fall into that first category, 0 through 150. It's not asking what the voltage is across the two phase conductors. It's asking what the voltage of any one phase to ground is. So often we're going to be falling in that 0 to 150 range. Then underneath the bottom, we have all of our conditions. So now that we've read the table, we can look back at our original question and start looking for more keywords. So we're going to start on the left-hand side. We're going to come down and find our nominal voltage, but then we have to figure out what condition we are. To do that, we head down in the conditions beneath the table, and we're going to look for more keywords in our question. Expose live parts on one side and no live or grounded parts on the other side. Great, I feel like we've got the right answer. So now we can read our table at face value. We start on the left-hand side and find our nominal voltage. We come across to condition 1, which is our condition, and then we find out how many feet it requires. And in this case, we find out that you have to have at least 3 feet in front of that electrical panel with these circumstances. This is how you're going to find every single answer in the NEC from here on out, if you don't already know the answer or the code section that it's in. If you happen to know the article or the section that it's already in, then you'll be able to skip the index part and you'll use the black bold headings, continuing to decide whether or not to invest the time to read the paragraph based off your keywords. So let's go ahead and get ready to tab our code book. All right, y'all, it's time to tab our code books. Make sure that you can tab it in your state and also make sure that you're in the right code cycle. I have videos on the 17, the 20, and the 23. You can find them on YouTube if you're taking the free version, or if you're taking the pro version, it's already right there inside your lesson along with this week's quiz. So go ahead, take this time and get your code book tabbed, and then we'll pick up in lesson 2. Before we jump off, I want to take just a few moments and invest in you just a little bit. And this week, we're going to talk about defining the win. We cannot hit a target that we cannot see. And you can use this in any aspect of your life. I love to use it in my morning. What does a winning morning look like for me? For you, I want you to start off with this concept. What does a winning exam prep session look like? What is a winning time? How much do I do it? How often do I do it? And there's a couple things that we're going to look at. You cannot hit a goal that you do not define. Arbitrarily studying here and there has got you where you are now. Now it's time to decide. First off, anytime I have a goal, I ask myself, is it legal, moral, and ethical? Yes, fine. It's legal, moral, and ethical to get your license. The second thing I ask myself anytime I have a goal is it physically possible to do it? Has anyone physically ever got their electrical license? And if the answer is yes to both of those questions, then you've got to start defining the win. How am I going to achieve this goal? It doesn't matter if you've been doing this a very short amount of time or a very long amount of time. You have to study this core content or you'll never get your license. And if you don't focus, if you don't grind right now, it's going to be another week, another month, another year without you getting your license. So some questions that I want you to sit down and consider for yourself and craft your own definition of a win for your exam prep. Some things like this. When will I study? What is a winning day? And I want you to define it as a day. What does a winning day of studying look like for me? I wake up in the morning and I study before work. I come home at night and I study at night. Define the winning time for you. And then you'll be able to set a bar. Set it really easy at first, and then you'll be able to incrementally move it up. The second thing you might want to think about is how much will I study? I'm going to study 30 minutes a day. And instead of just making that, proclamation, what I like to do first is ask myself, well, what would a winning day look like? Instead of saying I'm going to do this, say, what would a win look like for me? Well, if I studied 30 minutes a day, that would be a win for me. Would it help me get my goals? That would be so many hours a week, and in X amount of weeks I could have it. So I would start small. Start with 30 minutes. Start with an hour, whatever you feel comfortable with, but define it. Draw the line, set the bar, and then you'll be able to move it or lower it. And never be ashamed to lower it. Sometimes you set something a little too ambitious, right? Never be afraid to back it down based off of outside circumstances or what you have going on. Other things to look at are when I'm testing. I need to base these goals, these thoughts and ideas based off of when my test is. If my test is already booked for 2 weeks, then I need to expand these goals and expand this time. If it's a month out, I might be able to set it accordingly to that. And finally, what will it take to get me there? All of these questions are designing you a straight path to getting your license. What is it going to take? What does the winning day look like for me in order to hit this goal? So I challenge you this week. I want you to define the win in this one area of your life. And then I challenge you to try it somewhere else. During this time of you getting your license, you've got to make a decision. Am I going to get my license or am I going to wait another year and be without it? You've got to decide. I'm here to help you in any way that I can. And my bargain is that these videos will add value to you and you will in turn go out and add value to others. If there's anything that I can do to help you in life or business, you can always just email me at electricalcodecoach@gmail.com. Let's get to it.